Hey, this is Remy Franklin. I'm here at my desk in Lander, Wyoming, and reporting back on my 5th day of training with Coach Steve Bechtel up here. That's 5 out of 10 training sessions in this sort of intensive I'm doing, so I'm halfway through. Today we talked about non-specific endurance modes, and if that sounds complicated, I sort of thought it was. It's a little bit more technical, or at least new to me, than some of the other topics we've discussed, but we'll jump right in. So specificity is a training principle, or a principle we can apply to training, and the question is basically how specific is the training to the activity you're training for, which in this case is climbing, right? So we talked about 2 types of specificity. One was motor specificity and the other is metabolic.
Training specificity, we can either do things that are similar in movement or similar in the load they put on our body, or both.
And so like motor is just basically, are the movements similar? And so like bouldering is great training for route climbing. It's very motor specific, right? You're doing the same kind of movements. We were focusing on workouts that I can incorporate that will work on metabolic specificity. So they're non-motor specific, but they do try to get at similar metabolic processes that are required to climb, especially long routes or like whatever my climbing goals are. So I think this is important for a few reasons. Like, why not just go climb routes to train endurance, which is what I normally do, and I think what I'll keep doing for sure. I think there are a few benefits. One is like if you're injured, like with my finger for example, and I'm trying to lay off for a little while, I can go ahead and keep training certain metabolic processes that might be useful for my route climbing in the future. And then there's also just this question of being able to really overload, and can you do that on a sport route? And so I'll show a few clips now of Steve explaining a few of those benefits of this kind of training.
When we look at metabolic specific, we can go, oh, okay, if my fingers hurt, if my joints are bad, if I have a tweaked finger, how can I still move forward in my training? You've been in that mode where you're like climbing laps on something, and all of a sudden you're on 11B and you're flailing up and sticking the prompt. Sure. And although there's possibly some value there, and especially local to the forearm, I think that in order to get that big metabolic loads, we need to do non-specific stuff as part of it. And like if I have you running laps in the killer cave up in Sinks, your forearms are going to be destroyed, but I'm not necessarily overloading your system as much as I'd like to fully improve your endurance. And so when we do a non-specific mode like this, you're going to go on this and you're going to be like, God, I'm dying, I'm suffocating, I'm not able to provide the fuel, but it's not like any specific movement is really tiring you out.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're gonna start this. I'm gonna have you go really easy for 50 seconds, and then go as hard as you can for 10, and then go back to easy. Okay.
So again, the idea here is to try to overload and train our metabolic processes in ways that are useful for our climbing goals. And so there are 3 variables we talked about being able to alter. There's duration, like how long are you actually climbing on a route, say. For my routes, maybe that's 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. Intensity, so like how hard are you working during that time, and then like how many sets of that are you doing maybe during a climbing day. Are you doing 6 pitches? What grades are they? And then frequency, so how many times a week or how many times a year do you want to be doing this? And so the idea is to have the training be as specific to our climbing goals as possible. And then we talked about 2 different types of workouts that I'll probably incorporate as a way of sort of training non-specific endurance modes. And so the first one is total body cardiovascular system training. And so we did this on an air bike today, and we're basically doing like 45 to 50 seconds, really low intensity, just cruising on the bike, and then 10 seconds of like all out max power, and then repeating that a couple times. And the idea again there is to basically increase my ability to output energy in a way that's similar to like route climbing. And then we did the other type of exercise we did were complexes, and so basically these are just sets of exercises that we do in a row, and so this was sort of lower intensity strength training or similar to that. The first set of complexes I did were just with two 20-pound dumbbells, and I did just a deadlift motion, a row, a squat, and an overhead press. And then the second one was a little bit more specific to the forearm and to climbing, and that was a set of push-ups, a set of pull-ups, and then leg raises, and then squat with dumbbells again, and then a farmer's walk, which is just walking carrying kettlebells, and then weighted finger curls using a bar. So those are sort of some examples of exercises that would get at these non-specific endurance modes. And again, the idea is to vary that duration, intensity, and frequency of these workouts in ways that sort of mimics as closely as possible whatever our climbing training goals are. So hopefully that was helpful. I'll be outside bouldering hopefully tomorrow, checking out some of the local boulders, and then back in the gym later this week talking more about strength endurance and some other endurance training topics. So check back in.